Tene ta kasinga kapsula.
So yesterday we talked about the consequentialist Prasangika school of the Middle Way, and the day before we talked about the autonomist or the Svatantrika school. And so these two schools together, the consequentialist and the autonomist, are called the self-empty or the Rangtumpa. So what is the reason that they are called the self-empty? Well, the reason is that there are all the relative phenomena that appear. And so these are all the appearances of this life, of this world. And so all of these phenomena, whether we examine them with logic and reasoning, they are empty of themselves, they're empty of anything. If we examine them in our meditation, they are empty of a thing. So when we say self-empty, that means that they are empty of any empty of any thingness in themselves, all the phenomena of samsara. And so, for that reason, we say that the self-empty school is the school that talks about all phenomena being empty of any thingness of themselves. And so, those two schools are the consequentialist and the autonomist school. So they are called the self-empty school. And then we have the other empty school. And when we say other empty school, well, what does that mean? Well, the other empty school is when you have we have the ultimate dharma nature, the ultimate truth, and that is empty of anythingness that is other, anything that is other. So it is the dharma nature, the dharma dhatu is empty of any other things. And so in that way, this is so there is the dharma nature, and the dharma nature is empty. But is that just mere emptiness? It isn't. It also has the cause of Buddhahood. There's something there that we can experience. There's something there that we can practice upon. And so it's not just emptiness. It's emptiness of the other relative phenomena. So the dharma nature is empty of any relative phenomena. So it is the dharma nature is empty of the thingness of other phenomena. So that is these other empty. So now we might think to ourselves, okay, that shentong, that other empty, that's great. So the self-empty must be somehow bad or a terrible view. Well, is it like that? Actually, it's not. We really do have to study the self-empty view. It's very important for us to really establish and internalize that all phenomena are emptiness. The Buddha did teach the 2 types of selflessness. The Buddha did teach the 16 types of emptiness. He taught that all phenomena are emptiness, and so for this reason, really coming to understand and internalize that all phenomena are emptiness is extremely important. It's because it is because of thinking of things that we wander through samsara. We have the confusion that makes us, the confused appearances of samsara. Through that we wander in samsara. And so, is there a way to give up that confusion? There is a way. And that way, that is why we meditate that all things are empty. And when we practice this, then we can understand and realize this nature as it is. So first, we establish this through logic by listening and contemplating. And then on the basis of that, we do our practice. And so through this, we can really come to internalize the emptiness that is taught in the middle way. And so this is very important to do. It is very helpful to do. But when we come to understand this emptiness, if we just think that this emptiness is mere blank emptiness, that's a mistake. If we just grasp onto that as mere emptiness, that is not okay. We have to realize that the ultimate nature of the Dharmata, the way things are, has the clear wisdom. So we need to realize that. And so that is why the other empty, the shentong, is so important. So now when the Buddha taught the 3 different wheels of Dharma, the second wheel of Dharma, the middle wheel of the Dharma, is teaching that everything is emptiness. But then in the last turning of the wheel of the Dharma, he taught that emptiness is actually also the clear wisdom. It is the Buddha nature, it is the essence of the Buddha that is present within the Dharma nature. And so, for that reason, when we ask what are the sutras that the Shentong view, the other empty view, is based upon, they are based on the sutras of the third, the final turning of the wheel of Dharma. And so that is why, as it says below, this is taught, and the Buddha taught this in sutras, such as is mentioned below, the sutra that teaches the element, the Mahaparinirvana sutras, and others. So this teachings of the other empty middle way is clearly taught. It's taught in detail in the third and final turning of the wheel of Dharma. And then the great Maitreya explained this in his treatise, The Supreme Continuum, that's in Sanskrit, the Mahayana Uttara Tantra Shastra, and the rest of his 5 great works. He explained it clearly in that. And then masters such as Asanga and Vasubandhu spread these teachings, and they flourished in this way. And so, as it says here, in Tibet, the great masters of other emptiness include such masters as the great adept Yumuva, the omniscient Dolpo Sangye, Jetsun Taranata, the omniscient Ranjun Dorje, the third Karmapa, Katok Mahapandita, Getse, Gyurme Tsewang Chokdru, Gyurme Tempa Nanjal, Shechen Mahapandita, Wontul Tutop Namgyel, Dodupchen Jigme Tinle Wezer, and here we're missing a comma, Mingling Terdak and his disciples, and Dharma Lord Longchenpa, and so forth. So these are all the names of the other masters who taught the other empty middle way view. And so when they taught this view, these are the masters who emphasized the middle way view. And what is the manner in which they taught it? Well, in the middle turning of the wheel, there are some implied teachings in there. So these teachings of Buddha nature are implied in the middle turning of the wheel, but they're not explicitly taught. What the middle turning, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, explicitly teaches is emptiness. And then the other teachings that are implied in there, that are somewhat hidden in there, it's not said that the Buddha nature exists. It's not said that it doesn't exist. It's just sort of hidden in there, and so it's implicit in there as the teaching of the Buddha nature. So this is implied in the teachings of the second wheel of Dharma. So this is the actual practice, the aspect of clarity, that is the Buddha nature, which is implicit within the second wheel. So it's implied, it's not directly said in the second wheel. But this is actually explicitly taught in the sutras of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, the sutra that teaches the element, the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, the sutra requested by the goddess Srimali, and other sutras of the third wheel. So they're taught clearly in these sutras of the third wheel, as well as in treatises such as the Supreme Continuum. So the Supreme Continuum and sutras such as the sutra requested by the goddess Srimali and others teach this clearly. And so these are the sutras that actually explain the other empty view. And so these explanations are taught in the third wheel of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. These sutras contain unstoppable statements of the definitive meaning, which explain that Buddha nature has been present from the beginning in the continua of sentient beings. And so these are unstoppable statements, irreversible, irrefutable statements. That might be a better word. Hang on, I've got to take a note. Okay, now I'm finished thinking. Yes. These contain the irrefutable statements that there is Buddha nature. And the word for Buddha nature in Sanskrit and in Tibetan is Sugatagarbha, or or Deurashepa. So Sugata Garbha, Su means Sukha, or bliss, or happiness. And Gata means to go, have gone. So we have two things. We have happiness and bliss, and we have suffering. So we've got bliss and suffering. And the one that we want, that we don't want, is the suffering. And the one that we want is the bliss, I hope. So we want to get the bliss we want, and we need to bring ourselves bliss. We need to rid ourselves of suffering. And so right now, we are in, the place we're in is samsara. We're in this place of samsara. And what do we have? Well, most of what we have is the suffering. We don't have very much bliss. We have more suffering. And so we need to attain that suffering. And so we need to attain that bliss. And that bliss that we need to attain is the bliss of the state of Buddhahood, the bliss of the ultimate result. So we need to go from the suffering, this place of suffering and samsara, to the place of bliss that is Buddhahood. So we need to cross over this, and we need to get rid of all our suffering. We need to throw away our suffering. We need to gain the happiness and bliss, and come to this place of bliss. And so, who is it who has already gone there? Well, it is the Buddha Shakyamuni, and it's all of the other Buddhas of the past and all the Buddhas of the present. They have gone to the bliss, and so they've sugata. So they have gone to the bliss. And so, well, the reason is, well, how is it, so for that reason, how is it that they went from suffering to bliss? Well, they have the essence of this. They have the seed of this. It's present with them. And they have used that seed well. They've done well with it. They've used it right. And so because they have used that seed properly, they have been able to go from these places of suffering to the places of bliss. So they have gone to bliss. They have sugata or deurashek. They have gone to the places of bliss. They have used the essence properly. It's like if we have a flower seed. You know, they've taken the flower seed, they've planted the flower seed, it's grown, and now you've got the beautiful flower. That's like the blissful result of Buddhahood. And so, who is it who has this seed? Well, actually, everyone has this seed. This seed is has been present from the beginning in the continua of all sentient beings. So all sentient beings have this. This is present within the expanse of the Dharma nature. So just as all the Buddhas have had this seed, also all sentient beings have it. We all have the essence of going to bliss. We all have the Buddha nature. And so it is present within our mind streams. So how long have we had it? We've had it from the very beginning. It's always been there. Just as the Buddhas have had it from the very beginning, we have always had it from the very beginning. And so the Buddhas have taken it, they've used it, they've planted that flower seed, and they've grown the flower. And so we just haven't planted. It's like we've stuck that seed in the envelope, labeled it, and put it on the shelf there. It isn't going to grow until you put it in the garden and let it grow. So it's just going to stay in that envelope. And so we haven't used the Buddha nature yet. So we need to plant that seed and use that seed. So how is it that we're going to do that? So what is the Buddha nature like? Well, the Buddha nature is something, it's like, as is described here, similar to the analogy of, and here I need to change the translation a little bit, similar to the analogy of a painting on a huge piece of fabric that depicts the entire billion-fold world room. So we talk about the whole billion-fold world room, the universe with all the billions of worlds in it. And we've taken a huge piece of fabric and we've drawn this on this huge piece of fabric. And so we've got this huge fabric that shows the entire universe on it. And then what have we done with it? Well, we've neatly rolled it up, we folded up and everything. And so when you do that, you've got this nice, neat little piece of fabric, and you can't see the painting of the billion-fold world realms on it. It's like the tanka. You roll the tanka up, and you can't see the painting on it. So we folded up this fabric, we can't see anything on it. It's like if you have a map of the world. you've got a map of the world, and you fold it up, like this, and you can slip it inside the National Geographic magazine, and you've just got the piece of paper right there. But you can't see anything on it. Then you unfold that map, and you've unfolded it, and you can see, wow, there's the ocean, there are the continents, and everything. That's where the mountains and everything are. You can see it all on the map. And so, in the same way, we have this Buddha nature, but we folded it up and we've tucked it away someplace. And so we have to get that map out. We have to get the Buddha nature out, and we have to open it up. And so that is what is taught in these sutras. So that is how it is described in the sutras, and then in accord with that, it explains in treatises such as the Supreme Continuum by Maitreya. This is just as is clearly explained in Maitreya Nata Supreme Continuum of the Mahayana. Maitreya Nata is just another name, just another way of saying Maitreya. Maitreya Nata Supreme Continuum of the Mahayana, and especially in the glorious Kalachakra and other tantras. And so, in terms of the sutras, it's taught in the sutras, and then in the same way, it is also taught in treatises such as the Supreme Continuum by Maitreya, and in the tantras of the Vajrayana, it is taught in the glorious Kalachakra Tantra and in other tantras. So according to these, all sentient beings have from the very beginning had the nature of being awakened. So from the very beginning, all sentient beings have been Buddhas. From the very beginning, the character of the Dharma nature has never been sullied by any stains, so that samsara cannot be established as even a name. All nirvanic phenomena are permanent, stable, and unchanging. They do not change in any way. They have been inherently present in the nature of the mind from the very beginning. So from way back when, they have been primordially present. So what is this Buddha nature like? It is as Maitreya Nata says, just as it was before, so is it later, the unchanging nature of Dharma. So, well, what is this Buddha nature? When do we get Buddha nature? Do we get Buddha nature when we become a Buddha? Do we get Buddha nature when we attain the Bodhisattva levels? Do we get this Buddha nature when we become a great master? It's not like that. It's just as it was before, so it is later. So just like it was before we get any states like that, so it's the same later. It's always there. It's been there. It's primordially present. It's always been there from the very beginning. And so this is, in terms of the sutras, this is the view that we talk about in the sutras. We come to understand in the sutras through inference. We see why is it that Buddha nature is present in all sentient beings. What is it like? What is the essence? What is its empty essence like? What is the clear nature of it? What is the wisdom aspect of it like? And so this is taught in the Supreme Continuum by Maitreya. And in Maitreya teaches it there through 9 analogies. And so if you read this, you will see the 9 analogies. They're generally pretty clear, but the easiest of these analogies to understand is the one of the gold, the big hunk of gold. The analogy is that there's this big hunk of gold that someone just throws away, falls on the ground, falls in a little hole, gets covered by some leaves and some dirt, and the guy goes away. And so then over the time of years, over the course of years, it gets covered up with more dirt and trash and stuff. And there's this big hunk of gold there. We just don't know it's there. And so people not knowing it's there, throw trash on top of it. And so now, has the nature of this gold changed in any way? It hasn't changed in any way. It's still gold. It's still valuable, still useful as gold. But can we actually use it? We can't actually use it. It's there for hundreds and even thousands of years without changing, but does it help anyone? It doesn't, because it's stuck underneath the ground. No one knows that it's there. And so there's this trash heap under which there's this big hunk of gold, and this poor beggar comes along, and he builds himself some ramshackle hovel on top of this, and he's got this terrible ramshackle hovel that he's living this poor, destitute, impoverished life with nothing to eat. Terrible life, and he's got this, and he's sitting there on this trash heap. Underneath there is this huge piece of gold. Now, does the gold say, "Hey, I'm here"? It doesn't say that. And does the beggar know that the gold's there? The beggar doesn't know that it's there. Then someone who has clairvoyance comes along, And he says, oh man, that poor guy, right underneath his house, there is this huge piece of gold. This guy could be fabulously wealthy, and instead he's living in this hovel, and he's destitute and has nothing. Oh, the poor guy. I got to tell him. It's not right if I don't tell him that he can just dig and get this. And so he says to him, hey, actually, you better believe me on this one. There is this huge piece of gold right under the ground. All you've got to do is dig and find it, and then you won't ever have to be poor. You won't have to live in this hovel ever again. And the guy says, oh, hey, maybe he's right. And he digs and he finds, and he gets this piece of gold, this huge hunk of gold, and now he's rich. So it's the same way there with us. There is the Buddha nature that is present within all sentient beings. It's present, but for hundreds or for thousands of years, we haven't really seen it. We haven't been able to use it. We haven't known it's there. And then the Buddha found it. The Buddha has found it, and he said, oh man, all these other people have this too. They've got this same treasure. And so if you use it, if you look for it, if you find it, then you can use it, and you can do this too. And so you need to meditate, you need to practice. And then when you got to this point, that's what it is. Now I've got it. And so in this way, we find this nature, the Dharma nature. We find the union of clarity and emptiness. This has been present in the way our mind is from the very beginning. So that is what this teaches. And so this is, establishing an understanding that Buddha nature is present in the beings of all sentient beings. And so we need to develop it within our beings. And so in terms of the sutras, we do this through inference. We do this in the post-meditation. Through inference, we analyze this. In terms of the secret mantra Vajrayana, we follow the instructions of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. We look at the nature of the mind. And when we do that, we see the way the ordinary mind is. And so here, if we just sort of explain this with a rather long historical tale, then there was the great master Gampopa. Gampopa gave the instructions on Mahamudra to many different students. And among his students, there were the 800 great meditators. And so these 800 great meditators, they're people who came, they just meditated a lot, and they became the great meditators. And so there are always more and more people coming and getting instructions and becoming great meditators through this. And among these, the main students among these were the three men from Kham. So the three men from Kham, they were three people from eastern Tibet, the area called Kham, and they came to there, and they were called the three men from Kham because a lot of people, you didn't know everyone's name, so you call them by a nickname. So you give everyone nicknames, and so their nickname was the three men from Kham. And then also because, not everyone really knew their names, they had lots of they all had their own individual nicknames too. So the first of these was called Old Greyhead. So Old Greyhead, that's the Dusum Khenpo, the first Karmapa. Dusum Khenpo was old. He had gray hair, so they called him Old Greyhead. And then the second of these was Salton Shogom. And so Shogom had kind of a little curled lip, so they called him Curled Lip. The Curled Lip Meditator is what they called him. So the curled lip, And then the third of them was Dorgyal. So Dorgyal, his real name was Dorje Gyaltsen, and they just sort of combined it, Dorgyal. Now, Dorgyal later went to a place called Pakmo and Pakmo Drup, and he established a great monastic seat there. So later he was given the name Pakmo Drupa. So you may have heard of the name Pakmo Drupa. That is a name that he was given later, but his earlier name was Dorgyal. So Dorgyal is someone who, before he met Gampopa, he went and he studied with masters from many different traditions. One moment. We have to build the suspense as you wait. So he studied with many masters from other traditions before he met Gampopa. And then finally, so first he went to meet some masters, and he met some masters of the Kadampa school, and the wonderful, great master of the Kadampa school. And so he asked this master, "Oh, please, master, will you please explain to me, what is the main thing that samsara comes down to?" And the master said, the root of all samsara is the 12 links of interdependence. The first of these is ignorance. And Dorjiao thought to himself, man, that sounds so hard to get to, so far away. And so he went off, and he eventually came to the Sakya master, and he said to the Sakya master was Kunga Nyingpo, and he asked Kunga Nyingpo, what is the root of samsara? And Kunga Nyingpo said, the root of the samsara is that the winds have not yet entered the central channel in the body. He said, boy, that sounds really difficult. I can't do that. And so then he went to Gampopa. And when he went to Gampopa, he said, Oh, Master Gampopa, what is the root of samsara? And Gampopa said, the root of samsara is that we just haven't recognized the ordinary mind. And Dorjiao said to himself, boy, that sounds easy. And he had real realization, and he developed real faith and developed realization from this. So whether we call it the view of the shentong, the other empty, whether we call it the self-empty, whether we call it the empty essence, whether we call it the clear Buddha nature, whether we call it the essence of the mind, it is all just this essence of the mind. It is the empty, it is the essence that is empty, but it is naturally clear. So when we establish this through inference, this is the view of the other empty and of the self-empty. And when we practice this, when we look at the essence itself and we experience it and meditate upon it, then we see the way the Dharma nature is. We see that the Dharma expanse and the wisdom are inseparable. And gradually we increase this. So we recognize this, we're pointed it out, we recognize it, we see that we realize it. And so when we have that realization, is this realization of the nature of the mind, does it help? Well, realization in itself actually doesn't help that much. Is it good? Well, of course it is good. But is it enough? It is not enough. So in addition to in addition to that, we also need to meditate. We need to develop the experience of it. We need to meditate well on it. And so as we meditate upon it, sometimes we'll have some sort of a feeling and an experience, and we can meditate upon that. Sometimes we don't have much of a feeling, an experience, but we should meditate upon it anyways. And if we meditate in this way, then we will gradually be able to develop and increase our meditation. So when we use the inference, we study and we come to understand the views of the consequentialist and the other empty schools. And when we actually look at it directly, we use the instructions on Mahamudra and Dzogchen to look directly at the nature of the mind. And we do these together so they both are resting on the same thing. So when we do study in the context of the secret mantra Vajrayana, what is it that we study? We primarily study the view of the sutras. We come to comprehend and internalize the view of the sutras. And then when we have real faith, real belief and confidence in that, then we do meditation and practice, and we do the secret mantra Vajrayana practices of the creation phase and of the completion phase. And so in this way, the views, the sutra and the tantra help each other. They work each other. As one grows clearer, the other grows clearer. So as one grows stronger, the other grows stronger, and they both grow stronger together. And so that is why it is so important to study and really establish our view. Not only is it important to do this, it is something that all meditators must do.
There
was a question yesterday that actually was a really wonderful question, and it reminded me of some things that I forgot to say. It's given me some encouragement to say something more today. So this is it reminded me of this. And so what was the question? Well, the question was about the verse from Rangjung Dorje's aspiration for Mahamudra. May the light of the three wisdoms, or the light of the three full knowings, the three prajna is here. It's not yeshe, it's prajna. May the light of the three prajnas, the three full knowings increase. And so Here it's talking, this is a really wonderful question because it's important that we really increase the light of all three of these types of this. It's important for us to have the full knowing that's born of meditation. It's important for us to have the full knowing that's born of contemplation, and it's important for us to also have the full knowing born of listening. All three of these are important, and so this is the wish that the light, the illumination of all three of these full knowings increase. And so the prayer reads, so the first line of the prayer, may the full knowing born of listening destroy the darkness of not knowing. And so first we have to study study scripture may the light of the scripture and reasoning destroy the darkness of unknowing. And so we need to practice. We need to know what it is to practice. We have a path that we want to practice. We have a result we want to come to, but we don't know how to practice the Dharma. We don't know how to follow the path. So how do we do it? What do? We don't know. Well, in the past, the Buddha followed that path. He completed that path. He accomplished the Dharma. And then he taught how to do it. And then there were the great masters of the path who followed the path. They accomplished the Dharma. And then they wrote down how to do it. And so we can listen to these teachings. We can read these teachings. But is just listening to these teachings and read, and so we have the words, the scriptures here, the scriptures of the words of the Buddha and the treatises written by the great masters, and so we need to listen to them. And then when we listen to or read these scriptures, is it enough to say, hey, that's great, that's wonderful? Is that just enough? That's not. We need to use our logic. We need to use reasoning for this. We need to really sort of understand what the reason is, because it's not like we can just say, hey, the Buddha said that, that's great, that's right, that great master said that, that's perfect, that's wonderful, that scholar said that makes a lot of sense. You can't do that. You've got to say, what are the reasons? We have to recognize what the reasons why that great master said that, and then we use our reasoning to do that. And so through the scripture and reasoning, we are able to dispel all the obscurations of not knowing. We destroy all these obscurations of not knowing. And so first we do this. We do the listening through the scripture and realization. And then once we have that, we need to develop the full knowing born of contemplation. So sometimes we get to this point, well, this is great, we understand this is great, but now what do I do? How do I proceed now? So there are the instructions that have been given. So we contemplate the instructions. By contemplating the instructions destroys the darkness of doubt, the prayer says. Contemplating the instructions destroys the darkness of doubt. So this is the instruction. Then there's the explanation of the instruction, and it clearly tells what the path is through that instruction. We follow that, we say, that's what it is, this is how we do. And through doing this, we can destroy all the darkness of doubt. At first we have doubt, we're not quite sure what it is, but we follow the instructions, we think about them, and then we can destroy that darkness of doubt. And so we've had this listening and this contemplation. Now, does this actually do anything with it? Are we done once we've done all this? We aren't done yet. We haven't finished. We've got to keep going. So we have to develop the meditation. We have to do our meditation. And through the light of meditation illuminates the nature as it is. So the light of meditation illuminates the nature just as it is. So first we listen and we contemplate, we recognize the nature as it is, and then we meditate upon that. So is it enough to can we do this without listening and studying? We can't. We have to have that certainty. Then once we have that, we can develop the full knowing born of meditation, and that the full knowing that illuminates the the nature just as it is. And so in this way, we make this aspiration that these three types of full knowing that the light of these three types of full knowing may spread everywhere. And so in this way, through doing this, may we then be able to realize the Mahamudra. And so again here, full knowing, when I say full knowing, I mean what is often translated with the Sanskrit term prajna, which is sometimes translated as wisdom, sometimes it's translated other things, but just to be clear, here we're talking about the full knowing, or actually you could just say intelligence. And so that discusses how the view that we come to really understand and internalize through the self-empty and the other-empty, and the nature of the mind that we see through the Mahamudra and Dzogchen are indivisible. And so that's enough for today. And as you have already guessed, because of Lobsang, he's given it away. We're going to do a few minutes of meditation.